I read a story about a doctor and his wife. His wife, she started to complain about these really bad headaches, and after a short period of time, she went into the hospital. She had brain damage, and she died. Come to find out that her husband, he did some research and tried to find out how you can take someone out. And so he, every morning, would put some cyanide in her smoothie, and he killed her. Why did he do it? Well, affair, insurance money. Listen, that little bit of poison every day. We are living in a world that there's a little bit of poison that we're receiving every day. And we're not even aware of it. And this little bit of poison is leading to what we will see in Revelation chapter 17, that this beast, this woman that's riding on the beast, is part of the great deception that we are seeing in our world that is unfolding. We're going to look at Revelation 17, but Revelation 17 and 18, they kind of go together. We're only going to look at 17. Revelation 17, we're going to look at this spiritual Babylon. And in chapter 18, we're going to look at commercial Babylon and talk about the fall of these systems. As we get into chapter 17, we're going to be talking about Babylon. And it's so interesting that when you look through the Bible, Israel, or Jerusalem, I should say, is mentioned over 700 times. The next city that's close to it, in as far as frequency and how much is mentioned, is Babylon, some 250 times or so. And so it's a iconic city in the Bible. It has some significance, the meaning of what it stands for. And so we're going to look at some of that here in chapter 17. Now look at verse 1. It says, "Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, 'Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication.'" I want to pause there because we're seeing this judgment. In the previous chapter, we talked about how God, with his bold judgment, judged the world. But we're seeing this judgment on this harlot that's going to be sitting on this beast. But it says that she is a great harlot. Now, when you think about a harlot, think about prostitutes. And we're seeing here that she's going to be with all of the kings, she's going to make the people of the world drunk. And this harlot, she represents a religious system. Now, notice that where she sits on many waters. We talked about waters in the past, how it represents the people of the world, a great number of people. So she's sitting on the waters, meaning that she has great influence on the people of this world. I believe this is going to be, is speaking of this one world religion that will happen in the future. So notice what she does. She fornicates with the kings of the earth. She fornicates. Now, when you think about relationships, you talk about marriage. Marriage is being committed to a relationship. A man, a woman having a relationship that has great commitment in it. You can think about a marriage as having a full course meal, a steak dinner, right? You buy the steak, you cook the steak, you serve it with some sides and maybe even have some dessert after. But after you do all of that, you still have to wash the dishes, right? You're committed. When it comes to adultery, on the other hand, is eating somebody else's steak dinner. You don't have any commitment there. But fornication is skipping the dinner, the dishes, is just having the desserts. So this woman that's fornicating with the kings of the earth, there is no real commitment to any relationship each one, both the kings as well as the harlot, they want something. Well, what do they want? Well, you think about kings. What do they want? They want power. On the other side, this religious system, what do they want? They want money. And you see that in our world being played out. And so they're going to be involved in this relationship, not committed to any serious relationship. They just want something. But notice that also she intoxicates the people with the wine of her fornication. In other words, this religious system, this organization, she has great influence over a great multitude of people, and she will sell them out for what she wants. I mean, you think about it, we're in a small church. We have a couple of hundred people here. And so in a sense, I have influence over 54% of you. You say, where 54% come from? People don't trust pastors. So 54% of you trust me. There are other churches that pastors that has, a couple of thousand people. And so, a couple thousand people trust that pastor. There are others who have millions of people that they influence. But listen, there is one particular organization, church, that has influence over billions. Now, you think about that. When a pastor or a church has influence over people, what do you normally see? Well, the politicians usually come and say, hey, can I spend time with your congregation? Right? Why? They want power. So could you imagine that a church or any person that has an influence over 1 billion, 2 billion people? Well, we'll see how that plays out. Notice in verse 3, she's riding the beast. It says, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So this woman, she is riding on this scarlet beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. The scarlet is symbolic of sin, corruption, and bloodshed. Sin, corruption, and bloodshed, this beast. The beast is called a beast because, well, it's a wild, untamable animal, a beast. There are many different animals we can tame. Some of you have dogs, and you teach your dogs fetch and sit and roll over. One of those beasts that we can't seem to tame is a cat. Come, sit, I mean, it doesn't matter. They just look at you like Garfield, right? The only word that my cat understands is food. I will say anything else. You want to go outside? Food. That's the only word it gets. But here it is that she's riding on this beast, and she thinks that she can tame this beast. But there's a reason why it's called a beast. Now, notice she's riding the beast, and I want to point this out because she thinks that she is in control, but in reality, the beast is the one that's taken her where it wants to take her, right? She thinks she's in control. It's just like, when a man will say, I am the head of my house. And the wife will say, what? I am the neck, and I can turn him wherever I want, right? She thinks she's in control, but the beast is the one that's really in control. He's making her feel like she has some control, but she really has none. Now, I want to say this. I put this on the screen for you. Listen, whenever faith gets in bed with the state, its political embrace is sure to corrupt the message of grace. And I want us to have this in mind because here it is, this woman, this religious system is getting in the bed with the state, the politics. And anytime that happens, what happens? You will see that the message of grace, the message of the gospel will become corrupt. And that's what is happening in this picture that we see here. Now, verse 4, we'll see how she's dressed. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. So here it is that she's dressed, arrayed in purple and scarlet. Now, we talked about scarlet. It's symbolic of sin and corruption and bloodshed. But purple speaks of luxury and royalty and wealth. So this woman who has luxuries and wealth, it seems like she got her wealth from corruption, from sin, maybe even bloodshed. Now look at what it says. She's holding in her hand a cup, a golden cup. You know, when you see a golden cup, this is not just a gold-plated cup. This is not a sprayed cup. This is an actual golden cup. Now, when you see a golden cup, you're like, wow, that must be valuable, must be expensive. And you get fascinated with the outside, but notice that it said, but on the inside of that cup is filled with abomination of filthiness. You see, we have to be so careful. As Jesus would say, man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. We have to be so careful that we're not fascinated with people, especially that has great wealth and influence. We get caught up with, oh, look at them. Maybe if I'm close to them, I can gain something from them. It kind of reminds me of, I've shared this before, when I was walking out of our church in Fort Lauderdale, and I was talking to this one guy that we had met recently, and I didn't think anything about him. And on the way out, he said, he asked me, what do I do? I said, well, I'm a graphic designer, and was proud of it. I said, what do you do? He said, well, play for Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, my eyes open wide. I'm thinking, I'm in the money. The Lord had to put a check. It's like, what are you doing? You're getting consumed with a person, one of my creations, because they might have some money. You see, we have to be careful because people will use that to what? Gain influence over you. So she's holding this cup. In this cup, abominations full of filthiness. In verse 5, we see now the names that's written on her. It will give us an idea of who she is. In verse 5, on her forehead, the names were written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abomination of the earth. So these names help us to identify who this harlot is. First of all, it starts about talking about her, the name Mystery. Mystery is what? Something that was once hidden or concealed. It's a mystery. What is this mystery? We'll talk about this mystery. But John is marveling of this mystery that is being revealed. Also, the name that was on her was Babylon the Great. Now, we talked about Babylon before, how it was an actual city. It actually goes way back to Genesis. If you remember the city that was started by Nimrod, this mighty warrior, it says that he was a mighty warrior before God. Now, that word before means that he was a mighty warrior in the face of God. He was not a mighty warrior like he's a great thing. He was a rebellious man that he decided that he's going to influence the people to build a tower that they can have a name, a place above God. So he was a rebel, a rebellion man. And so God confused the language of the people, and that's where we get Babel from. I guess he confused their language. He gave them different languages to spread them out. But we have this man that really began this movement of rebellion against God. And that's why we see that it says here that she is, the third name, the mother of harlots. The mother, she gave birth, this city gave birth to harlotry, to prostitution. And in the spiritual sense, it's idolatry, worshiping false gods, worshiping idols. And this was the birthplace. So this Babylon is where it all began. Now, I want to talk to you, I want to digress because there's another mystery that the Bible talks about. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16, it says, without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifested in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen by angels, preached among Gentiles, believed on in the world, and received up in glory. I want to couple that with another scripture, Colossians chapter 1, verse 27. It says, to them God willed to make known what are the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in us, the hope of glory.